Hello and welcome back to Tarot Tuesday. Today I want to start doing the deep dive into the Fool's Journey, which is the story that's told in the Major Arcana. And the only way to do that is to start with the very first card, the Fool. As I had mentioned previously with the Major Arcana, the Fool's Journey, as the progression is known, goes from the Fool all the way through to the World. There are 22 cards, however, only 21 of them are numbered. The Fool itself is given a 0, or it often doesn't have a number, and that's because the journey itself is just beginning. So I'm going to talk about this card this week in terms of the Rider-Waite artwork, which is the most commonly accepted artwork for the symbolism of the tarot. So when we look at the Fool card within the Rider-Waite, what you'll see is a man who's staring up into the sun. Looks like he's carefree. He's got his little dog with him. He's got his little satchel of things over his shoulder. He looks like he's about to set out on a journey. But if you look a little bit closer, what you'll see is he's on the edge of a cliff. And if he doesn't look down and look at where he's going, he's going to step right off. So right away, in just looking at the art of this card, you can tell a lot about the meaning of it. Something new, something fresh. You're ready to start on a new endeavor. And typically the person that you're with or the person you're reading for will know this. They'll have that excitement. They'll have that almost giddy, childlike joy, that childlike wonder. And that's really what the Fool is trying to communicate. You should have that giddy, childlike joy and wonder as a way to give you that courage to take those first steps. However, as we know, the Fool is somebody, and just by the name of it, it's the Fool. The Fool does not know very much, doesn't have the experience necessary to know how to take those right steps or make the right choices. So within this card, there's also a little bit of caution. The man potentially stepping right off a cliff. We want the Fool to look down and look at where they're going. It's not all just pie in the sky. The idea and the vision of where you want to be is beautiful and wonderful, but you've got to pay attention to the steps you're going to take to get there. So as we look at the artwork again, the little dog, again, we see this a lot within the tarot. The animal companions that are often white represents your childhood, represents the innocence. Dog is man's best friend, will stand beside you no matter what, is happy to go on the journey as well. And this looks like a pretty happy puppy. It's just another representation of the energy coming through here. Now you can see as well the Fool carrying the little satchel over his shoulder. You see he doesn't have a lot of possessions. That is because he's just starting out in this world. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the things that he will gain along the way. But he has enough, and he has a little bit to know what he needs to set out. I've already mentioned it, but the cliff is incredibly important in looking at the artwork of this card. While it's at the bottom of the card, you may not notice it right away. That's by design, because that's how the Fool acts and reacts. Doesn't necessarily see the danger right before him. You see a lot of yellow, you see the sunshine in this, and as we know, the sun represents that vital life force. It's what we need to survive, to live. So as the Fool sets out on his journey, the sun is giving him that vital life force, that energy, that positivity to know that he's starting out on something that's new and that's good. So when the Fool shows up in your reading, somebody is just starting out on something new, has a new idea, and they're not quite sure if they want to go down this path. It can also be a sign to them that they need to start thinking in a new way. As I always mention, if you read reversals, the Fool upside down doesn't necessarily mean that you've got it all worked out. What it means is that you may still be continuing out on this journey, but there's even more that's hidden, there's even more that's unknown, and there's even more danger to pay attention to as you go on the journey. So again, I don't like reading reversals. It overcomplicates things. Also, these are a tool, as I always mention, so don't put too much meaning into it. Every single deck that you work with is going to have a different representation of the Fool. They're going to have slightly different nuance, because it's artist preference. And that's really the key to understanding these cards. They don't have meaning in and of themselves. They have whatever we put into them. So if an artist wants to draw the Fool in a completely different way, a Fool card out of a piece of paper where you draw a smiley face on it, that can be your Fool for you. It's really versatile, but understanding the story as it was first created and as it's commonly interpreted, I feel is really important, because it gives you a good foundation to work from. So that's the Fool. We'll be looking at the rest of the Major Arcana, the rest of the journey as we go through these videos. And hopefully you've learned a little bit about the Fool here today. And I look forward to seeing you next week with another Tarot Tuesday. Have a good one.